I run a small YouTube channel, mostly focusing on scenic hikes and exploring off-the-beaten-path locations. It's usually just about appreciating nature, finding old ruins, that sort of thing. This time I found something else. I need to write this down, partly to warn others, partly just to get it out of my head, though I doubt it'll ever truly leave. It started like any other day trip. I'd picked a lesser-known trail system in a fairly remote mountain range, hoping to get some unique footage. The initial hike was beautiful, strenuous but rewarding. Sunlight dappled through the canopy, birds were chirping, the usual idyllic stuff. I pushed further than I usually would, drawn by the promise of a ridge view I'd seen on a very old, very unreliable map. By late afternoon, the clouds had started to roll in and the temperature dropped. I knew I should probably turn back, but I was deep in, and the thought of backtracking all that way was disheartening. I figured I'd press on a little more, then maybe find a quicker if steeper route down another face of the mountain if the weather turned really sour. That's when I first noticed the lack of trail markers. I'd been following what I thought was a faint game trail, but it had completely petered out. The woods here were dense, older, the kind where the undergrowth is sparse because so little light gets through. It was getting dim and a prickle of unease started. I wasn't lost, not exactly. I have a good sense of direction and my GPS was working, but I was definitely off any charted path. After another 20 minutes of careful navigation, pushing through some thickets of rhododendron, I stumbled into a small, unexpected clearing, and in the center of it stood a house. It wasn't a ruin, not like the crumbling stone foundations I sometimes film. This was a 2-story wooden house, clapboard style with a porch and glass in most of the windows. It was old, clearly, paint peeling in places. A slight sag to the porch roof, but it looked intact, maintained almost. There was no driveway, no path leading to it that I could see. Just the wild forest pressing in on all sides of this small, strangely manicured patch of land immediately around it. The grass in this yard-like area was short, almost like it had been recently cut, which was the first really odd thing. My YouTuber brain immediately kicked in. Abandoned house in the middle of nowhere. Content gold. I pulled out my camera, checked the battery, and started filming an intro, talking about being off trail, the unexpected find, the usual spiel. I even made a joke about it being a horror movie setup. If only I'd known. The camera, though, seemed to be acting a little strangely from the get-go. The autofocus kept hunting, and there was a faint, almost imperceptible flicker on the preview screen that I put down to the low light. As I got closer, the strangeness amplified. The air around the house felt still, unnaturally so. The usual forest sounds, insects, rustling leaves, distant birds, seemed muted here, as if the clearing existed in a pocket of silence. The house itself, though weathered, was incredibly clean. No cobwebs in the corners of the porch eaves. The windows, though a bit grimy, weren't shattered or boarded up. The front door was closed, but not locked. I hesitated for a moment, a genuine flicker of, should I, passing through me. But the lure of exploration, of capturing something unique for the channel, was too strong. I pushed the door open. It creaked, but not in a dramatic, spooky way. More like a door that hadn't been opened in a week or two. The smell that hit me wasn't dust and decay, which is what you expect from an abandoned place. It smelled faintly of lemon polish and old wood, a clean, almost domestic smell. I stepped inside, camera rolling, narrating my observations in a low voice. The interior was even more baffling. A small entryway led into a living room. There was furniture, a sofa, a couple of armchairs, a coffee table, a rag rug on the wooden floor. And it was all pristine. Not new, but impeccably clean. No dust on the coffee table, no grime on the upholstery, though it was faded and old-fashioned. It looked like someone had been there tidying up maybe an hour ago. When I checked the footage later, this section is a mess. It's grainy, oversaturated in weird patches, and the audio is filled with a low warbling hum I swear I didn't hear at the time. You can barely make out what I'm saying. "This is incredibly well preserved," I whispered, trying to keep the camera steady. "Or not preserved, lived in. But who would live out here so far from everything?" I moved through the ground floor. A dining room with a table and chairs, place settings still on the table. Simple ceramic plates, cutlery, again, spotless. A kitchen, small and dated, but the counters were wiped clean, no food out, no dirty dishes. Even the sink faucet gleamed faintly in the dim light filtering through the window. It was deeply, profoundly unsettling. This wasn't abandonment, this was absence. Sudden absence. The camera seemed to really struggle in the kitchen. The footage shows strobing light effects and digital artifacts that obscure most of the details I remember so vividly. The feeling that the occupants had just left was overwhelming. Like they'd heard me approach and slipped out the back door, or were hiding upstairs listening. I called out, "Hello, is anyone here?" My voice sounded loud, intrusive in the quiet. Only silence answered. On the recording, my call is distorted, almost demonic sounding, followed by a burst of white noise. On the mantelpiece in the living room and on a small side table were framed photographs. I remember trying to zoom in with my camera. They showed a family, a man mid-40s perhaps with kind eyes and a receding hairline, a woman a bit younger with a warm smile and dark wavy hair, and a little girl maybe 7 or 8 with pigtails and a gap-toothed grin. They looked happy, normal. In one photo they were standing in front of this very house, the man with his arm around the woman, the girl holding a flower. The footage of these photos is useless. Blurry, pixelated messes where the faces should be, as if the camera refused to capture them clearly. I only have my memory of their smiles. "Okay, so people definitely lived here," I murmured, frustrated with the camera's apparent inability to focus. "But where are they? And why is this place so immaculate?" A knot of anxiety was tightening in my stomach. This wasn't fun, adventurous exploration anymore. This felt wrong. The cleanliness was illogical. A house this remote, left unattended for even a short while, would show signs of nature reclaiming it, or at least the dust of disuse. This felt like a stage set, meticulously prepared, waiting. I decided to check upstairs. The stairs creaked under my weight, each step echoing in the silence. I kept my camera light on, sweeping it around, though the beam seemed weaker than usual, and flickered. 2 bedrooms and a small bathroom. The first bedroom was clearly the parents'. A large double bed, neatly made, quilt smoothed down, a dresser, a wardrobe. On the nightstand, a pair of reading glasses lay next to a closed book. Again, no dust. It was as if someone had just stepped out. The footage here is almost entirely black, with occasional flashes of what might be furniture. The second bedroom was the child's, a small bed with a brightly colored patchwork quilt. A few stuffed animals arranged on a shelf, their button eyes seeming to watch me. A child's drawing was taped to the wall, a stick figure family under a yellow sun, standing beside a very large, very green tree. There was something almost disproportionate about the tree in the drawing, its trunk thick, its branches reaching over the family like protective arms, or encompassing ones. I tried to film the drawing, but the playback just shows a chaotic jumble of colors. My unease was growing into genuine fear. The silence, the order, the sense of recent unexplained departure, it was all too much. I wasn't an investigator. I was a hiker with a camera that was rapidly becoming useless, and I was way out of my depth. It was in the master bedroom, on that dresser tucked slightly under a small, tarnished silver jewelry box that I found the note. It was a single sheet of folded paper, yellowed with age, but the ink was dark and clear to my eyes. It wasn't a letter in the traditional sense. It looked more like a page from a journal or a prayer. I picked it up, my fingers trembling slightly, and unfolded it. I tried to film it as I read. The handwriting was neat, masculine, possibly the father's from the photos. My memory of the words is seared into me, but the footage, it's a complete wash. Static, scrolling bars of color and a high-pitched whine that makes my teeth ache to listen to. I can only recall what I read, what I saw with my own eyes. The hunger is great today. It whispers through the roots, through the floorboards. We offer what we can. We are grateful for its shade, for its enduring presence. It was here before us. It will be here after. The little one is strong, she feels it more keenly now. This is good. The communion must be complete for her to truly flourish under its boughs. It demands patience, it demands faith. The growth provides. The growth takes. We give ourselves to the growth so that we may become part of its eternity. It asks for stillness, for quiet nourishment. We must be still, we must be silent. Soon we will all be rooted, unchanging, forever part of its design. Blessed be the growth. May its reach extend, may its thirst be quenched. A cold dread washed over me, so intense it made me feel nauseous. The growth. What in God's name was the growth? The tree and the child's drawing flashed in my mind, oversized, dominant. The language of the note. Hunger. Whispers through the roots. Communion. Rooted. It was deeply disturbing. This wasn't a quaint, abandoned farmhouse. This was something else. Something sinister. The air in the room suddenly felt heavy, oppressive. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in my ears. The feeling of being watched intensified, not by human eyes, but by something pervasive. The house itself felt like it was holding its breath. "Okay, I'm done, I'm getting out of here," I said, my voice shaky. The camera, I realized, had stopped recording on its own. The little red light was off. I fumbled to turn it back on, a fresh wave of panic rising. This is too much. This note, this place. I need to leave. I backed out of the bedroom, not wanting to turn my back on the empty space. I practically ran down the stairs, the creaks now sounding like accusations. I didn't bother looking around anymore, just headed straight for the front door, jabbing at the record button on my camera, hoping it would work. My hand was on the doorknob when I heard it. A faint sound from upstairs. A soft, almost sighing creak, like a floorboard settling, or someone shifting their weight. I didn't wait. I wrenched the door open and burst out onto the porch, then half jumped, half fell down the steps into the clearing. The fading daylight seemed dimmer than before, the shadows longer and deeper. I didn't look back at the house. I just aimed for the edge of the clearing, the point where I thought I'd entered, and plunged back into the trees, camera clutched in my hand, hoping it was capturing something. The relief of being out of that house was immense but short-lived. The forest, which had seemed merely dense before, now felt menacing. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every rustle of leaves sounded like stealthy movement. The note about the growth and roots kept replaying in my mind. I glanced at the trees around me with a new horrified suspicion. They were just trees, of course, weren't they? I pushed through the undergrowth, trying to get as much distance as possible between myself and that clearing. My heart was still hammering. I told myself it was just an old, creepy house. A family with some strange beliefs, maybe they'd just moved on. Hired someone to keep the place clean for some reason. But the note didn't fit any rational explanation. I must have gone 100 yards, maybe more, when I passed a particularly dense cluster of ancient-looking oaks, their branches gnarled and intertwined, forming a thick canopy even in the fading light. As I was pushing past the last of the tree line around the house's clearing, a sound stopped me dead. A voice, faint, weak, almost like the whisper of wind, but with a cadence that was unmistakably human. "Help me." I froze. My blood ran cold. It was so soft I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But then it came again, a little clearer, laden with desperation. "Please, help." It seemed to be coming from my left, from deeper within that same cluster of old trees I was just passing. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, some morbid curiosity or perhaps a deeply buried sense of obligation made me turn. My camera was still in my hand. I pointed it blindly, desperately hoping to capture whatever this was. I took a few hesitant steps towards the sound, peering into the gloomy tangle of trunks and low-hanging branches. "Hello?" I called out, my voice a mere croak. "Here. Please," the voice replied, a little stronger, guiding me. And then I saw it, or rather her. It was one of the large oaks, its trunk thicker than any I'd seen that day, ancient and deeply fissured, and fused into it as if the tree had grown around her, or she had grown into it, was a woman. My mind simply refused to process it for a second. It was the woman from the photographs in the house. Her dark, wavy hair was matted and streaked with something that looked like moss. Her face, pale and drawn, was turned towards me, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and a horrifying, resigned emptiness. Her skin, where it was visible, had a strange, bark-like texture, dry and discolored, blending almost seamlessly with the wood of the tree. Her arms were not visible, nor her lower body. They seemed to have been entirely consumed, incorporated into the vast trunk. Only her torso, shoulders, and head were distinguishable, yet even these were deeply embedded. She looked drained, changed. I let out a small, choked gasp. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Her lips, cracked and pale, moved. "Help me, please." Her voice was a dry rustle like dead leaves. I finally found my voice, though it was trembling uncontrollably. What happened to you? Who did this?" A flicker of something unreadable passed through her eyes. "The growth. It took us. It keeps us. Nourishment." The words were halting, weak. Each one seemed an immense effort. "The family, your husband, your daughter," I managed to ask. The images from the photos, however vague in my memory of the actual prints, searing my mind. Her gaze shifted slightly, as if looking past me or through me. "He welcomed it. He brought it to us. He's rooted deep. He sleeps now." A tear, thick and slow like sap, welled in her eye and traced a path down her bark-like cheek. "My daughter, she's still aware. It wants her fresh, please. You have to help her." "Help her how? Where is she?" I stammered, my mind reeling, trying to comprehend the impossible horror before me. How could I help? What could I possibly do against this? The woman's eyes darted frantically, not at me, but somewhere behind me, back towards the direction of the house, or perhaps just into the deeper woods. Her breath hitched. It's coming." "Who? What's coming?" I whispered, a primal fear seizing me. I didn't dare turn around. Suddenly I heard it, faint at first, the sound of soft, deliberate steps on the forest floor behind me. Twigs snapping gently, leaves rustling not by wind but by passage. My skin crawled. The sound was unhurried, almost casual, which made it all the more terrifying. The woman in the tree saw the terror on my face, or perhaps she heard it too, more acutely. Her eyes, already wide, stretched impossibly wider. A raw, guttural sound tore from her throat, no longer just a plea for help, but a scream of pure, unadulterated terror. "No, please, stop!" she shrieked, her gaze locked on whatever was approaching behind me. "Leave him, don't let it—" Her voice cut off, gurgling. I didn't wait to see what it was, I didn't look back. That scream, that final desperate stop, aimed not at me but at whatever was behind me, shattered the last of my horrified paralysis. I ran. I've never run like that in my life. Blind panic fueled me. Branches whipped at my face, roots threatened to trip me, but I didn't care. I just ran, lungs burning, heart feeling like it would explode from my chest. The sounds of pursuit, whether real or imagined, I don't know. I think I heard those soft steps for a while, keeping pace, or maybe it was just the blood pounding in my ears. I didn't dare to check. The woman's scream, her changed face, the father's note about the growth. It all swirled into a nightmare montage in my head. I ran in what I hoped was the general direction of the main trail, back towards where I'd left my car. I have no idea how long I ran. It felt like an eternity, every shadow a threat, every sound a pursuer. I didn't stop, didn't slow, just kept pushing, stumbling, scrambling through the dense woods. The light was almost completely gone now, the forest plunged into deep twilight. Finally, through sheer dumb luck or some ingrained navigational instinct, I burst out of the trees onto something familiar, the switchback of the trail I'd been on hours earlier. I've never been so relieved to see a marked path. I still didn't stop running. I practically flew down the trail, my hiking pole still strapped to my pack, clattering uselessly. It must have been another hour, maybe more, of this desperate flight before I finally reached the trailhead, the small gravel parking lot where my car was. It was the most beautiful sight I'd ever seen. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking so violently I could barely get the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life and I slammed it into reverse, spun the car around and sped out of there, gravel spraying behind me. I didn't look in my rearview mirror until I was miles away on the main highway. I drove straight home, a multi-hour drive without stopping. I didn't even realize I still had the camera clutched in my hand until I was unlocking my front door. Later, with a sickening sense of dread, I tried to check the SD card. It was almost entirely corrupted. The files were there, but they were unplayable, full of digital noise, static, blocks of distorted color, and horrifying garbled audio. There are moments, tiny fractions of seconds, where I think I can make out a shape, a distorted sound that might be a word but nothing concrete, nothing to prove what I saw in that house, what I read in that note, or the abomination I encountered by that tree. It's all gone, lost to some kind of digital decay I can't explain. It's as if the place itself, or whatever resides there, actively fought against being recorded. I haven't been able to sleep properly since. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, fused into that tree. I hear her voice begging for help, then screaming. The growth. What was it? Some kind of sentient, parasitic plant entity, a local deity they worshipped until it consumed them. And what was coming for me? The father, rooted deep but somehow mobile, or the growth itself? The lack of any footage makes it worse somehow. It's just my word, my fractured memory against the silence. Sometimes I even start to doubt myself, to wonder if the stress and the isolation of being off trail made me imagine the worst of it. But then I remember the cold dread, the smell of lemon polish, the feel of that note in my hands, and the sheer primal terror of that final scream. No, it was real. I haven't gone back to those woods. I don't think I'll ever go hiking alone in a remote area again.